Welcome to Leadership Development News, Profiles and Practice of Top Performers. I'm Dr. Riley Nadler. Dr. Kathy Greenberg won't be with us today. She's having some surgery done, and we're wishing her the best with that. I'll be checking in with her a little bit later and seeing how all that goes. And Kathy and I have been doing this now for 20 years. And so both of us are fans of emotional intelligence and certified in a lot of the different emotional intelligence assessments. But why emotional intelligence? It really is fun, easy to understand. Do you understand yourself? Do you manage yourself? So there's the self side. Do you understand others and do you manage others? And in the managing others, there's all these key leadership competencies, conflict management, change management, inspiring others. And so what are the tools and tips? And so that's one of the things that we're always trying to do. Today, we're going to talk with Jeremie uh, Kubicek, and he has a new book, The Voice-Driven Leader, and he's also got a coaching school. So I'm really excited to talk to him about that and what are some of the tools and tips that he brings to his clients, but also, some about his coaching school. And, Kathy and I both are faculty on the College of Executive Coaching, and we have been for, quite a while. I've been for 25 years. So a couple things about why we do this and what do I bring to my clients. We all know this is a wild time. How many times have you heard the word unprecedented? It's probably, it would be good to do a Google search. How many times have you heard that word unprecedented? Because it's, now overused, but everything is unprecedented. And so this idea, here's a 4 leadership challenges that I see, and we'll ask Jeremy about it. One is this emotional distress. Everything is more. So whatever you're feeling, put a more sign in front of it. So more anxiety, more impatient, more pressure, more stress than before. So that's number one. Number two, with all these things that are being more, are we aware of it? Well, some of the research is saying we're not as aware, emotional self-awareness, as we think. Tasha Eurich in her book Insight talks about we're only about 15% of us are really aware. What are your strengths? What are your values? So that's quite low. A lot's going on. We're not sure what's going on. We're blind to it. And then how do we operate? We're on autopilot. And you've heard me say, if you stay on autopilot, you stay average. Nobody wants to be average, but we're all on autopilot as much as about 95% of the time. And so what we don't do is interrupt autopilot and interrupt autopilot with what we would call slow thinking. Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast or Slow, the title says it. How often do we think slow, which is reflection, which is going to happen in coaching, which Jeremie is also going to talk about? 2% of the time. So everything is more, and you're not sure what's going on. Where do you ever get the chance to digest that? And leadership is slow thinking, and coaching is slow thinking. It's one of the few places that you can take a breath, look at what's going on. Is this the right decision? Go deeper. And we love our shortcuts. And the first thing that comes out of your mouth, on autopilot may not be the best decision. So what I like to say, and we'll ask Jeremie about this, is coaching, I would say to others, I'm a thinking partner with you and for you. These are all your ideas, but how do we look at it deeper? How do you look at different options? How do you look at action that you can take? So with that, let me introduce Jeremie here, and then we're going to get into his book. And it sounds like he's got some good frameworks. That could be some tips and tools that will help you. So Jeremie is a dynamic communicator, seasoned entrepreneur, an influential content creator. So we're going to tap him on some of that content, whose work has been shaped leaders and organizations across the globe. He's the author of Making Your Leadership Come Alive, a national bestseller, and the Peace Index, as well as a co-author of 100X Leader, 5 Voices, 5 Gears. I think that's all one book. And then the Communication Code. And then today we're going to talk about, that came out in November, the Voice-Driven Leader. So he's a co-founder of Giant. It's a global enterprise dedicated to certifying coaches and consultants, and I think it's in his technology, who serve organizations and their people. Over the course of his career, he's founded more than 25 companies. Jeremy, that's huge. While living and working in different places like Moscow, Atlanta, now Oklahoma City, London, and his passion is equipping leaders with to multiply healthy influence and build cultures of trust and effectiveness around the world. So, Jeremy, welcome.
Good to be with you. Thank you. Thanks for that intro on your on more. I think that's really wise. And I'd throw into that really lately, like even the whole idea of this is the first era ever where we'll have co-agency, you add in agents, and how do you think with technology and that every person from this point forward potential will have automated digital, autonomous digital employees
Yes.
with them. And if you're a manager, you're going to be leading half humans and half agents. That's a whole nother dynamic to put
It's
more.
right. And I think it adds to the value of coaching. And I know we'll talk about this. A lot of coaches like, well, what about now? Now someone's going to have an AI coach. Well, fast thinking is is important, especially on the front lines. But if you're not digesting what you got from AI and you're not really seeing, okay, which is valuable, what fits for me, how am I going to do that? So I like to say we've outsourced our thinking. And now, because AI is so good, why should I even think?
And I found that the fast thinking agents, they oftentimes are set up to affirm because of
Yeah,
the dopamine hit. So
yeah,
they're affirming potential bad behavior.
right, right.
Like, well, that's a great idea, Briley. Yeah, you should do more. Well, is it? Is it the right idea? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Well, that's
fascinating.
interesting, Jeremy, because I do think that's on the cutting edge. I'm giving a presentation later today, and we're looking at maybe some of that question. Yes, how do we integrate AI, but then how do we validate AI?
Mhm.
So that's going to be, probably on the cutting edge. And I think us as coaches, hopefully, will be leading that because it allows us to, well, what I think is good about coaching, if we've outsourced our thinking, coaching is insourcing it. For leaders, let's insource our thinking. Let's ground it. Let's give it some roots.
Mhm.
So give us a little bit about your background. We always like to kind of start with maybe who's helped Jeremy be Jeremy.
No, it's great. Yeah, I'm a farm boy from Oklahoma. My
Okay.
family moved from Prague, Czechoslovakia to Prague, Oklahoma. So we moved from Prague to Prague. So it's just a Czech community, and I grew up in this Czech community. Went to college and graduated and moved to Russia in the early 90s because the Soviet Union had fallen. And I was one of the first pioneers in with a group of other people. And we started an economics school. It's the largest private school in Russia today. It's called the Moscow Economic School.
Huh.
Started consulting, training, accounting training company, and a marketing consulting business. And then along the way, I was there and I started coaching at 21 years old.
You were
Ran, I
coaching at 21?
was 21. And
Wow.
I started coaching executives who had moved over to Russia. And let me just say it in a nice way. They were there to make as much money as they could, and they were losing their souls in the process.
Wow.
And so I started coaching I started with one executive. He would go on, he was, this is crazy, but he would go on to be assassinated. He was the first American killed in Moscow. And it was a really rough time, really rough. It was like Chicago in the 30s.
Yeah.
So then I started coaching another exec and then another. And I think I had four guys. They were probably age 45. I was 21. And they needed someone to talk to. So
Right.
I was almost like a priest and
Uh-huh.
counselor. And I was clueless as a 21-year-old, but I had enough moxie that I started just learned how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into the coaching business.
So what year was that? Because
Right?
coaching really got popularized. I mean, I started in 1995, but coaching started probably, mid 70s. What year was that?
1993. So,
Okay, so we really
yeah.
it hadn't been popular. Like our school got certified by the ICF in 1999, and it was the ninth school. So really, you started way early.
Yeah. So 93 to 95, I was there and started the process and just trying to help people understand what's it like to be on the other side of them, helping them process their their tendencies. And so I started working on this concept of two things. I started working on support and challenge. And I had been studying Russian history. I studied the Russian view of the World War II and versus the American view of World War II. Fascinating. And started understanding the psychology of challenge with no support.
Yeah.
And so the reality of the Soviet Union was a dominating society that used fear and manipulation to keep control over people.
Right.
And when they did that, it led to abdication, not liberation.
Uh-huh.
And so I watched the culture and studied post-Soviet culture, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with this capitalist but dominating history, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so I took that, and that was one of the frameworks of it's one of the frameworks I teach. It's called the support challenge matrix. High support, high challenge
Right.
creates liberation.
Okay.
High challenge, low support creates domination.
Hmm.
And high support, no challenge creates protection. And so this whole process, I started to study then the best leaders in the world. And how do you get people to follow you, that they're endeared to you and engaged, or are they compliant?
Yeah.
And compliancy leads to average companies, it
Right.
leads to abdication. And I watched the Soviet era lead to average, abdicating, apathetic workforce because they had to do something they didn't want to do, but they were afraid that they'd lose their life.
Right.
They do just enough to keep their job or keep
Yeah.
their life.
Wow. That's a very, very rich background. Um, so so I got a question. So how did you get to Russia? I mean, like why Russia? Like what brought you there? And then we got, a series of questions I want to ask you, but let's start with how
Well,
you get there.
I was at a small liberal arts school, and I had a professor who had lived all over the world. And he goes, Jeremy, you're an entrepreneur. And so he offered this opportunity to go to Asia, where he had been for a term. So I went to Asia and studied. I was in Singapore and China and Thailand, South Korea. Did a full study of the Asian world. And at that time, the Soviet Union was falling apart.
Yeah.
And so then he had this connection to the former Soviet he was actually the leader of Moscow schools. It
Hmm.
was connected to my professor. And he said, who wants to go to Russia and start a business in class? And I'm like, I'll do it. And I raised my hand, kind of just halfway joking.
All right.
And we built the business plan for this, and we had this opportunity. So this guy needed help starting economic school. So he was our partner, and we brought in capital and teachers and different people, and then ended up
Okay.
starting the school, moved to Moscow, as you do. But when you're 21, and at that
Yeah.
time, if you remember that, like we won in our minds. We won the Cold War.
All right.
It's like I grew up on James Bond, John Wayne, and Jesus. And you put all three of those in to this like who says we can't attitude. So
Right.
we went over and just did things that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
It kind of started the theme of my life of who says we can't.
Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like the launching was with your professor, and so it sounds like it wasn't only you, but so other students went, which was a
Well,
kind of, I would think, a safer environment. Like we were part of a program, and this is what we're doing.
there was no program. This was on our own. We built
Okay.
it with the professors, didn't go with us. So he was just teaching in
Yeah.
America, and so it was me, and we had four other business guys, and then we had teachers that we brought over. So there was a team of about 10
Yeah.
of Americans, and then we were there during a coup attempt. We were there during car bombings. We lived above a mafia group. So my first book is called "Making Your Leadership Come Alive." It became a Wall Street Journal bestseller because of all of my mafia stories, all of the client assassinated, all of these crazy stories.
So it sounds like that should get picked up for a movie.
It really does. And I'm writing something right now that actually could be significant. But
Okay. Well, so one of the things that you have here is the moment that changed everything. And it sounds like from one of the words you've already talked about was kind of liberation. So like what was it that maybe
Mhm.
changed everything?
Well, for me, it was actually another era. I was 32, and I'll go pretty quick
Yeah.
here, but I was hit by a drunk driver in a hurricane in Mexico. And I got the opportunity to see like the end of my life. And I actually had a near death experience, which is, is pretty rare. And I got to see my life flash before my eyes. And what it did for me is I was very, very ambitious. I was very aggressive. And I would probably say I was very focused on me and what happened by having that experience. And my wife was there with me. We both changed our whole trajectory of life. It's like I've had 32 years of building a lot, and I had done a lot by 32 years old, a lot more than most. And then from that point forward, and I'll be 55 this year, it's like another life. I got a chance to live again. And
Hmm.
so I started being focused on others versus just focused on me,
Hmm.
and took a car accident for that to kind of switch to go, I'm not the hero. I'm going to help other people achieve who they're meant to be.
And so obviously you and your wife were okay with that. I mean, was it serious? Were you in the
Yeah,
hospital?
yeah. I mean, I died. Let's just say that I stopped breathing for 4.5 minutes. And
Gee.
so, yeah, severed. I was paralyzed, severed intestines, bruised every organ, broke 9 ribs. So it was serious.
Wow. How long were you hospitalized?
It 10 days, but another hurricane was coming, and so I had to get out
Oh,
to get back to the
gee.
U.S. So two
Oh man.
hurricanes, two hurricanes in 10 days.
Gee. Well, that's an amazing story. And so then we'll get into then that new reflection of your life and where, where you're going. Um, just like we're talking about this idea of slow thinking, you got you got no thinking for 4.5 minutes, and then how that has kind of changed things. Well, good. So this is probably a good place that we're going to take our first break. And you listen to Leadership Development News, profiles and practice of top performers. We're talking with Jeremie Kubicek, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Leadership Development News. We're talking about Jeremie Kubicek. He's got a fascinating background, and he actually has a coaching school we'll hear more about. If you're interested in Jeremie and hear more of this, his website is Giant Worldwide, Giant GIANT worldwide.com. And you can get in touch with him at Jeremie, Jeremie at giantworldwide.com. So, Jeremy, part of what we're talking about today is your book, um, The Voice-Driven Leader. And so you sound like you have this framework about five voices. So tell us about, maybe what that is, and then what's can people expect in the book?
So years ago in 2016 or so, we created a book called The Five Voices, and The Five Voices is being used. It's funny, in certain pockets, it's really, really hot. It's certain cities, it's fascinating, certain industries. But the five voices, what we did is we realized that personality tools, again, we're big fans of all tools. Any tool can be used. Okay.
Right.
So big fans, DISC. I grew up on DISC. I grew up on Myers-Briggs. I've done Enneagram. I've done all these different tools, colors and strength
Yeah.
finders and such. The reality, though, we found is we kept tripping on the fact that most people would be in and excited for Myers-Briggs for about 2 to 3 months, maybe, and then they would forget it, or they didn't know how to explain it.
Right.
Or if you go, so what's your wiring? And they're like, I'm an ESPN. And you're like, no, you're not. You can't. It's hard to. Or I'm a 7 with a wing 8, or I'm a high D, I'm a high I. So we realized, like, it's potent, but it's not scaling.
Uh-huh.
So we took the best of Carl Jung. We went back to Carl Jung's original work, which is where Myers-Briggs came from.
Right.
We went to the big five.
Yeah.
We created a framework called the Five Voices that was simpler, and it would stick. So we've been working with Google. I think we're in our 7th year with Google, because they're using the Five Voices, because the language, we work with Pfizer and Biogen and these companies of all sizes, Chick-fil-A, different. But the Five Voices, it's simple enough a 13-year-old can get it. So what we did is we had a little formula, and so now we have the nurturer, the creative, the guardian, the connector, and the pioneer. And it's super easy.
Say those again. I'm writing down. So you got nurturer, creative.
Nurturer, creative, guardian, connector, and a pioneer.
Okay.
So for instance, I'm a connector, creative, pioneer. Well, that is an ENFP. That's high I, little with some D. That is a 7 with a wing 8. Okay, but connector is easy to remember.
I'm an ENFP, and I love the Myers-Briggs, and so I would be, and you and I are the same as far as Myers-Briggs goes. So that would be a connector.
That's a connector. So now it's a connector, creative, pioneer if you really want to get into it, but enough for a team to figure out I'm a connector. So if I'm a connector, my opposite is a guardian. Happens to be my wife. That happens to be an ISTJ. And so she's a guardian nurturer. Well, the guardian and the connector are nemesis voices. And so, but what we've figured out was how to scale it, and scale communication and relational trust through personality in a better mousetrap. That's what the Five Voices is. So, and if you want to go take it, anyone listening, it's free, fivevoices.com, and take a look at it. It's the number 5, fivevoices.com, and you can just see what you think by yourself. You can see, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this read me. This was so easy.
Yeah.
But what we found, though, that's not enough. That's good. Those tools help you figure out who you are, but they also help you figure out who the other person is. So the idea of the voice-driven leader is, really, you've traveled around the world, I'm assuming. You've been to lots of countries. If you go to France, and if you go to France in an American accent, a Texas accent, or New York, and go, hey, coffee, black, no sugar, let's go. Like, that's not going to be received very well. Because I'm the tone, but it's also, I'm forcing you to speak my language. So the voice-driven leader is the idea of, like, know who you're talking to and speak their voice. So if I know I'm a connector, but my wife is a guardian, She needs detail. She's factual. She's logical. It's A, then B, then C. So when I'm talking about something, I don't want to come to her with like just dreams or big ideas or just talking out loud. I'm going to be a little bit more buttoned up. And so I'm going to speak her language, not mine.
Yeah.
So the idea is that's great leaders know who they're leading and they speak their language versus forcing them to speak your own language.
Yeah.
So that's the key. That's the start of the voice driven leader.
I love that. And I'm a fan of Myers-Briggs. I've done DISC a lot. And I think what you said earlier, it took me a while before I wanted to go get certified in the Myers-Briggs for the exact same reason. Someone said, "Oh yeah, I did Myers-Briggs." What's the next question? What's your letters? What's the letters again? And it's like, if you can't even remember the letters,
Right.
how valuable. But I do think this idea that you're saying is so valuable. I've had a lot of CEOs that I've coached who are more kind of NTs, so big picture, strategic, and you can
Pioneers.
almost see them talking up here, and they're the idea people. And so I would say, especially for that leader, I mean, it's kind of similar to what you're saying with your wife. Are you talking about ideas or are you making this is a direction? And you need to clarify that because otherwise, I've had people when the CEO was saying, "Hey, tell me about this. What's going on?" They heard, "Go change this," and they're going,
Yes.
"I never said that. I was in the idea world."
So here's a great example. We've built about 75 visual tools to support the voices
Mm,
because people don't read anymore.
right,
We, for the most part, I mean, when I say people, I mean the general population.
right,
So we had to create visual tools that are very sticky and memorable, and you can remember. So here's one of them is called Provision, Plan, Promise. So hey, really, I've got an idea. It's just provisional. That means don't take notes. I'm talking out loud.
I know.
And
Good.
so you and I are going to have that. That's a tendency of ours to talk provisionally. Well, the guardians hear that and they
Right,
hear we're promising.
right.
And they're like, no, I'm just talking out loud. And they're like, no,
Yeah,
you said it. So you're a
right.
liar because you're not doing it. And so we give language to the
Yeah,
voices and we go, look, if I say provisional plan promise, it's a plan. We're going to do it, but it could change.
yeah.
Promise is over my dead body. We're going to do it
Oh,
on July 5th. We're going to do it. So therefore, we're giving visuals and language so
yeah,
that the voices can start to communicate, build trust so that they can get aligned. And that's the entire game we figured out. We had to dumb it down to a 13-year-old level.
yes, yeah.
And Harvard is awesome. Myers-Briggs is awesome. They're just too complicated for the general masses.
Yeah, I hear you. That's huge. I mean, I'm with you. And I do think even in my own family, and I had it down to two stages. This is the talking stage, which is your provisional, versus the decision stage. And so even with my kids, my wife is like your wife, and they would say when their kids were younger, they're older now, and they would say, "Oh, well, Dad thinks this is a great idea," and she said, "Yeah, he thinks everything's a great idea." That doesn't mean that we're going to do it. I'm in the idea stage.
That's right.
It's a whole different
Provisional.
conversation with your voices. Okay, now we're in the decision stage. But
Yeah.
as simple as it is, I love what you're saying because that's what leaders need to know because they're just doing their own preference.
And that's the whole concept with leadership is like you have to know who you are, you have to know who they are, but you need to know where they are. And that's the entire book. We took the development square of basically Maslow's and Gordon's training of unconscious incompetence
Right.
to conscious incompetence to conscious so we created the development square and we innovated it a bit to make it simpler because it's hard to remember
Right.
conscious competence, conscious incompetence. So we just talked about the engagement, like, or we talked about just the first stage is onboarding. You got a brand new person, so you're a pioneer. Let's say you're a pioneer. You don't have a lot of patience. You get a new employee, and that person is a nurturer. Well, how do you onboard them? Well, a pioneer is horrible at onboarding because they have high expectations and they don't give a lot of support.
Uh-huh.
And so a nurturer, what do they want? They want kumbaya, they want relationship, they want to
Yeah.
know that everything's going. Well, it's really slow and the pioneer's really fast. Well, then you're going to have friction at the very beginning of
That's,
unconscious incompetence.
that's great.
So
And
what we did is we built an entire process to know who are you, who are they, and where are they in the development square.
mhm.
Now speak their language to get them all the way around into the multiplication level.
That's great. Now, is this in your value-driven book, or is this in the Five Voices?
This is in the voice driven
Voice-driven.
leader book.
Voice-driven.
The
Okay.
latest one, it updates
Okay,
the
good.
voices. So it gives you a summary of the five voices so you know
Great.
enough, but it then puts development right in the middle of this process.
So here's a visual that I like to use. Same kind of thing with some other different models, sometimes about change. The conversation that people are having is like the roulette wheel. And so the ball's going around and around. We got this change, or I want you to do this and this and this. That's kind of the what, but the how needs to land in a specific number like the roulette wheel was. So you have to know in your language, what's the voice that I need this ball to land into? Here's my big topic, but it's going around, and now here's where I'm landing so you could really hear it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so if what we're doing is we're making it easier for leaders to go, hey, do you know that you have a loud voice? So the nurturer is the quietest voice,
Uh-huh.
and then the creative is quiet. The loudest voice is the pioneer, the NT, and then the connector, and then the guardian's right in the middle. So usually it's the pioneers and connectors who they take all the oxygen out of a meeting, and they go, hey guys, all right, best idea wins. I'll go first. And
Right.
then they talk the entire time, and then they leave very little time. So we actually flip it. We go, the rules of team engagement for a team meeting
Yeah.
is we share, and then we have the nurturers go first, then the
Okay.
creatives, then the guardians, then the connectors and the pioneers have to learn how to go last, and you get more out of your team.
And so that's where you're kind of elevate, like you know who you are, and you're elevating those voices because you're saying they'll get smothered by the folks who are a little bit more forceful.
That's
And
it.
so the pioneers are the NTs. And what I've noticed with NTs, I'm sure you have too, or the pioneers in your language, what do they can't stand? Incompetence.
Incompetence
They
or
can't,
time.
yeah. And they haven't been clear going back to your expectations. Now you're holding us against them because they're incompetent, where you really weren't clear. You didn't speak their language to kind of talk about the five voices. So they even got what you're doing. Now you're on the other side of saying you think they're incompetent. And so,
And, and so what we figured out is we figured out the actual demographics. This is so fascinating. 43% of the population are nurturers,
uh-huh.
and 70% of them are female.
Okay.
So you have nurses, teachers,
Yeah.
stay-at-home moms, and then the guardians, they're 30% of the population, and 70% of them are male. Well, to get, and they're like police, soldiers, they're the accountants.
Okay. Right.
So what's interesting is that 73% of that population
Which
are
one? The guard?
present of the nurturer and guardian.
Yeah. Okay.
They're present oriented.
Right.
27% are future oriented. And that's where a lot of the clash is. The creatives, which are 9%, the connectors, 11%, and the pioneers, 7% of the population. But the pioneers, this is so fascinating. The pioneers make up over 50% of all the executive positions, like CEO positions, because they're
50.
hired to win.
Right. And then what percentage of the population are they? The pioneers?
7.
Seven, but 50% of CEO or key leaders.
Yep.
And
So
that makes so much sense. And that's why everything is communication, expectations, accountability.
so the clash of 27% over here are future, 73% are here. So it's like a train. It's like the engine gets way out ahead of the rest of the train.
Yeah.
And you got to slow down to speed up. You got to actually come back because you left your entire team because you're over the second mountain already and the train is way back here. And so like that's where the clash is.
Yeah. I told you before I got on, I just led a supervision class for people who are being trained as coaches. They present a case, and I use that exact analogy that you just used, that someone was coaching someone. another leader who was such a fast talker, and I said, they're leaving everybody at the train station. They're not taking a breath. And then part of it was, what are they not feeling? This person had a lot of loss in their life, and then they were a politician and lost the um, their position. That someone else got it. And so, what are they not feeling? Because they're already down the station talking super, super fast.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? So what happens then is if you know that, then you have to slow down to speed up. Well, what do guardians want? They need to know that the details are right. You got to
Yeah,
slow down to give them enough details. What
yeah,
do nurturers want? They want to make sure everyone's taken care of. We're not going to lose people along the way, are we?
yeah. Right.
You got to convince them that your plans are not going to kill the entire team.
Yeah. This
And
is
that is super hard for leaders because they just want to move on to the next thing
right.
and they lose their people.
Well, this is so important in change management, which I know for you and for me, when you're coaching leaders, everything is change management. They're new, or the environment's new, or the team is new, and so this change management. How do you get everybody there? So, what about one of the things we're looking at is this idea of decoding expectations behind every conversation. We got just a couple minutes and we can come back to it. But what would you say about this communication code framework? Like what's hidden in there?
In my communication code framework,
Yeah,
the idea is that everyone has an expectation when they're communicating, and the
yeah,
expectation is not clear. So we've created code words to go. Are you wanting to celebrate? Are you wanting care? Are you wanting clarity? Do you want to collaborate or critique? And if you understand and you tell people ahead of time, hey, really, I've got a big idea, but I need you to clarify first.
uh-huh,
Your tendency, not necessarily yours, but someone's tendency might be to critique when I really need clarity first. Because if you start critiquing on something that's not right, then you're
right,
going to lose me.
yeah.
So, or I might want to celebrate. And if I tell you I want to celebrate, but if I want to celebrate and you start critiquing, then I will close down and I'll raise my walls up, and you're going to lose influence, and I'm never going to tell you.
All right, so say that it looks like there was five C's. What
Yep, it is celebrate, care,
care?
clarify,
Yeah.
collaborate, or critique.
Oh,
They're
there's
code
six.
words.
Collaborate or
Yep,
critique.
yep.
Okay. Well, let me just say those again for our audience, and we'll take a break. So clarity, like what do you want? What do you want in this conversation? You need clarity. You want to collaborate. Is this about care? You need to clarify.
It's the first one is celebrate,
Celebrate. Oh yeah, celebrate. I read it wrong. And celebrate, collaborate. And what's the
care. Yep, celebrate,
critique?
care. Yep, clarify, collaborate, or critique.
So six of them.
There's five.
Five.
Yep.
Just so I get it. So clarity,
The
celebrate.
first one is celebrate.
Yeah,
The second one is care.
got it.
Third one is clarify.
Okay.
Fourth one is collaborate. And the
Okay.
fifth one is critique.
Yeah, I had clarity twice. All right, great. Those are really good. So we're going to go to a break, and we're talking with Jeremie Kubicek. He's laying out some of these tips and tools. The voice-driven leader is, if you want some more information, that's going to be available, and you can get more into the framework. So you listen to Leadership Development News, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Leadership Development News. We're having a delightful conversation with Jeremie Kubicek. He has a book that is really simulating a lot of the different assessments. Many of you are familiar with Myers-Briggs, the DISC. He did some of the Jungian work. I'm interested in seeing this. He also talked about the Enneagram. I mean, all of these are great tools. And what they're great about, it just allows you to see people as unique. And what do we end up doing? We all try to make people like us. Hey, just do it the way I do it. It works for me. Well, that's not going to work for them. And he left us with, what does someone want in this conversation? Celebrate, care, clarify, collaborate, critique. And in the trainings that I do with folks, with leaders, and also with coaches, we talk about what would an employee, what do they come to you and they say, you got a minute. And what does the leader think? As soon as they say they got a minute, the leader thinks they want direction for all the right reasons, but maybe not what they want. They really don't want direction, but that's what feels good for the leader, and that's what they think their job is. It releases dopamine. And so part of it that I would instruct them is this model called Vivid. What could you want? So the V is vent. We don't use that. Maybe the person needs a vent. If they don't say that, the leader thinks they're complaining. Or they may need information. Where's this? When's that? But the second V is the key one. And this goes along with, I'm looking at your list, maybe clarify, validate. I got an idea. Can I run it by you? When the leader's thinking, you want my idea, direction. And then the second I is ideation. Can we brainstorm? So vent, information, validation, ideation, let's brainstorm, I'm not validating, or direction. And so, Jeremie, I'll ask you this. When I ask this group, someone comes to you and they say, hey, you got a minute? And you, the leader, thinks they want direction. But in reality, what percent of time you think they don't want your idea? They thought about it more. They got their own idea. They want validation for their idea, which would be clarify in your model, maybe. What percent would you think they would say? Because it's always around the same number. So they want validation, not direction.
So what percent would I say
Yeah.
that they think they want?
They want validation. They don't want to hear, they don't want the leader's ideas. They want to.
Oh yeah, I'd say it's 85%.
Okay, you're right on. Every time I ask it, it's 70% or higher, sometimes 85 or 90. But this is what's really good about the work you do and I do. This is a paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
The leader needs to know that they don't want my idea. I want to develop them, and they got an idea. Why don't I spend some time on their idea first?
Mm-hmm. I do a lot in the sports world. I have one of my businesses is called Better. We do a lot in college athletics, and we work with the mind of the athlete. Like, how does athletes think? And you need to know how they learn and what their stress behavior is.
Yeah.
So their stress patterns. So I was working with a major college football. I was coaching the head coach. I said, can I sit in your defensive room and watch? And we did. And there was this one situation of this one player made an error, and they went over the play probably 50, 60 times, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back. And it was super interesting to watch. And then I was watching the interactions of all the coaches, and the head coach or the defensive coordinator was looking for the blame. Who's to blame?
Right.
What needs to happen? Because this happened and we lost the game because of this one play.
Oh.
And no one was getting to it. Well, I knew the player. And at the very end, I just raised my hand. I'm like, hey guys, can I add a thought? And it was like, what? Can the shrink guy, can the mental guy add some thoughts here? And I'm not a shrink. I'm not a psychologist by nature, but I'm an amateur. And I raised my hand and I just said, have you guys ever thought about how he learns? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, he's a kinesthetic learner. And so you need to teach him that way. Has anyone gone over that with him? And the reality was, they said, no, we just have to, we're shoving film. He has to watch film. And he doesn't learn that way.
Right.
Not the way he learns at all. Well, no one had even stopped to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, then I said, can you go back to the last two plays? Well, he screwed up two plays in a row before that. I said, and not only that, he's in stress behavior because he knows his teammate, he let his teammates down. So two plays of stress. And I go, do you know that he's a connector? And as a connector, if they get squashed, they'll show up like a nurturer. So they're going to show up differently, meaning they're going to get docile and they're going to go inward and kind of shrink down.
Ah,
Are you aware that that's what happened? And
yeah.
they couldn't fathom, like, how did you know that? How did you dissect? Because I spent time with him. I know what his voice was. I know what
Yeah.
his stress patterns are.
Yeah.
And I know how he learns. Now, if you did that for every player, what are the chances that they'll perform at a higher level, especially in stressful situations?
Yeah.
And that's the level where people don't take enough time. And the coach was yelling at him based on his voice,
Right.
not the player's voice.
Right. And so I love, not a lot of assessments have the stress. I mean, I think the colors does and others, but I think, where are you in normal situations? But no one's in normal situations now. And where do you move? So in the voices, it has a where you are
Absolutely.
normal and then the kind of the adaptive or whatever you would name
We
that.
talk about the power of your voice, your superpower, and then your weapon. What happens under stress? So, an example, a pioneer becomes a bulldozer under stress.
Yeah.
And they start bulldozing, get out of the way, they climb up and they just do it themselves and they take out everything in their path.
What about connectors?
So a connector is cyber warfare. They subtly slander people they're mad at and under stress because
Uh,
they're trying to get back, but they don't want to be aggressive, so they
yeah.
do it subtly. And then the creatives, they become the Hulk and they Hulk out.
Uh-huh.
And then the nurturer, they withhold care from people. They're naturally medics,
Yeah.
but under stress, they'll actually won't help the person who's hurting other people.
Uh,
And then the guardian interrogates. So my
well, okay.
wife turns into an interrogator under stress,
Yeah.
and it becomes a grand inquisition.
Wow. And that's so good. I mean, I pull that out in Myers-Briggs, the difference between critical and accepting or questioning and accommodating, those two things, because you're in a meeting and you got someone who is questioning and critical, and I don't know how that is in the voices, and somebody else is accommodating and accepting, and they feel interrogated. Well, and I have to say, this guy's not interrogating. They're just trying to get an answer. So you have to also understand, but then they may need to alter how they're
Your
asking
feeler,
questions.
yeah, that's right. Fascinating.
Well, so let's talk about, before we close down, we talked about everything being more, and you and I talked about kind of in organizations that are feeling people are in despair. Maybe their voice isn't heard, and maybe they're in that pressure stress response that may not be their best response.
Mm-hmm. So what happens is when you onboard a new employee, and again they're in an unconscious incompetence, they're clueless and they don't know it. They finally realize they're incompetent. They're consciously incompetent as they're getting immersed. They're in the immersion stage,
Right.
and they're learning their job. Well, if the boss doesn't provide enough vision, encouragement, or time in the right way to help them, they'll fake it. They'll start faking it to make it and
Right.
then start looking for other help. And if they don't get help from other people, they can slide into what we call the pit of despair. And the pit of despair is when they check in the mornings, they go down into the pit of despair in the basement, and there's 3 or 4 other employees down there. And they're like, how long have you guys been down here? And they're like, yeah, 2 years. Well, who pushed you in? Brian. Oh, Brian's a jerk. Yeah. Who? And there's like a subculture of people who are in this pit of despair, and everyone else knows they're in the pit of despair. And you're working around the person because they're not making it. They're
Oh,
just found. Well, like your job as a leader is if they go into the pit of despair, we've never found a case where they're ever useful again in the organization. They
wow.
either self-select and leave, or they'll be selected to leave. They'll be fired. And so your job is to get them to jump over the pit of despair into the engagement. They become consciously competent. They
Yeah.
know what their job is.
Yeah.
It's role clarity. They know the expectation, and it might be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. hey, you're doing a great job, Relly. And then the next day, oh yeah, you kind of messed that up, didn't you? Yep, no, you didn't. But you're gonna do it. You're gonna make it. But your job as a leader is to make sure they don't fall in that pit.
So
And so,
what characterize it? Like, just give me some of the behaviors. So if it's like someone's listening, they go, "Oh, that's me," or "That's so and so." Like, what would?
yeah, a person in a pit of despair is they wake up in extreme dread. They come to work and they keep their head down. They don't want to really talk to people. They maybe ask some other person in the pit of despair what do they need to do just to placate other people, just to keep their job,
Okay.
because they're fighting to keep their job is really what it is, because they
Yeah.
need the money, but they're so disempowered, and they don't connect with any of the other group members.
Yeah.
And then the peer dynamic comes in, and everyone else kind of knows, and they kind of
Yeah.
stay away from that person. And then they start doing workarounds. Hey, I got it. He doesn't know what he's doing, and that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. I mean, they're in a large organization, there's a lot of people in the pit of despair. In
Uh-huh.
small organizations, they're not there very long.
Yeah. Because it's more visible.
That's right.
So say a little bit about your coaching school, and then we'll kind of bring us to
Yeah.
it
Well,
sounds like you got people. Yeah, how many people you have?
yeah.
That are
So we've had about 1,200, and so we've got in about 115 countries. We have 5 Voices certified coaches and consultants. And what we do is we basically teach this how to use visual tools, and to basically leverage in today's visual world. So
Yeah.
how do you know the 5 voices and get certified in it? Because there's a complexity in making it simple. You got to learn how to get it simple enough for a 13-year-old,
Hmm.
and then how to scale it inside organizations.
Yeah.
And so we've learned how to do that, and then we provide these visual tools, and then we teach knowing when to use what tool for what. And the tools are around emotional intelligence, they're around IQ, and they're around personality. And so all of them are designed to work with each other. And so we have a simple process. It's simple. I mean, it's similar to a lot of other certifications, but then the support is our community is we support one another. It's not like some certifications I'm in or have gone through, like I never saw a person again.
Right.
It becomes a little bit more of a family, and like you learn from each other, and then so you support one
Yeah.
another around the world.
Wow. Fascinating. So the book is Voice Driven Leader, and I'm sure you can get it anywhere. Um, and let me give you a website. So, as I'm doing that, let's talk just as we bring us to a close. So, where do you see AI integrating, supporting, or maybe getting in the way, of coaching?
So I think it's co-agency. I mean, we have to be, it's like human flourishing and human like acceleration. How do we actually help humans achieve more? So we created 5 Voices AI. So if we build a system, so if it knows you and it knows me, I can get an email and I go, hey, how do I respond back to Relly on this?
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, he's a nurture connector, nurture guardian, or whatever. And here's how I would do it to that voice. So it's leveraging the best of AI, but we believe that 5 Voices is really hyper customization. It's personalization.
Hmm.
So if you can hyper personalize and truly, truly know people, it should make you better. It should be AI should be teaching you how to know the voice of the other person. And that's what we've been leveraging it for.
So you have an AI tool on the 5 Voices that just kind of helps if they know that, and then it can like produce recommendations or kind of a quasi script.
And it knows for teams, it knows everyone on the team. So then it gives you your entire directory of your employee base and how many nurture. I mean, it gives you percentages. How many nurtures do you have on your team? How many guardians? How many? So then it already knows. And
Yeah.
so all I need to do is say, hey, I've got a performance review for Relly. How should I handle it? Well, it knows you're a connector already. So it's going to give me a performance review. It's going to be different than it would to a
Right.
guardian.
Right. How new is that AI tool?
It's about a year,
Hmm.
year and a half, maybe.
Okay. And so if people are interested in that in your book, is it all that on your website?
Yeah, it's fivevoices.com is fivevoices.com and Amazon, and you can get everything that we provide there.
Okay. So the fivevoices.com is a different website, and then your giantworldwide.com, that's the coaching one.
Yeah, the fivevoices.com gets you to the coaching as well. So if you want to take it and want to find out more information, it'll lead you there.
Okay. And so people can go and they can basically
test
for
it out.
free.
It's free.
Free.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So let me ask you a couple of our lightning round questions. And so one, and you just kind of complete the sentence. Leadership is
Influence.
influence. Okay. And at work, it's all about
Others.
And then the other one is, we talk about the EI model and around wellness and self-management. So it's really about like, what do you do? Like, what's your practice to be your best? Like, how do you best recharge during the day? People have a lot of good practices after work or whatever, but like it's during the day. What do you do to be your best?
I go on a walk and reset my cortisol. I reset my nervous system almost on a daily basis.
And by walking, but are you deep breathing or?
I'm doing a little bit of that. I'm analyzing, like, where was I not at peace and why?
Okay.
Is it me or was it others? And it's usually me. And I kind of go on a walk and process it. And I kind of keep short accounts and I reset my cortisol level.
And then how long are those walks typically?
30 minutes.
Okay. And this is so good because, like we're like athletes, the corporate athlete, you're working with athletes. I've been an athlete, I've worked with athletes. They have these rituals that many times people at work don't have any of these recharge rituals. They know they should. And the good news is it doesn't take much time, but whatever it is, like walking, deep breaths, getting up and go talk with someone because you're a connector and you get energized. So I think your five voices are going to help. And really, how do they get energized? Probably each one's a little different.
So good. Good to be with you, really. Thank you.
All right. Well, good. You've been listening to Leadership Development News. Continue to tune in to tune up your performance, and we'll see you and talk to you next week.